Today on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking with the Heartbreaker Ronnie Payne. Where did your relationship with professional wrestling start? Like, when was it first exposed to you? When did it first enter your life?
Yeah, so I feel like I can't pinpoint the age. I was young. I was like 3 or 4, I think. And that's like my first memory of wrestling. My dad used to take me to the Grand Prix shows that would come to our local arena. And I can remember, and I'm people are probably going to be like, oh my gosh, you should know your history better, Renee. I mean, Ronnie. But I remember a wrestler coming out with a bear, like a real bear. He came to the ring with a bear. And I know, I'll have to go and find who this was. And I know exactly who I'll talk to and ask. But I can remember watching this and just being in awe. Like, there's animals here. There's these big, giant guys. Yeah, it was a great memory. My dad took me, but it was my mom and my dad were both there. But my relationship with wrestling was definitely me and my dad sitting on the sofa together, watching it on Saturdays. We had 3 channels growing up, and it was on Saturdays. So those are my earliest memories. And really, I think the reason why I love wrestling so much, because I got to share that with my dad.
So you're watching it fairly regularly on the couch with your dad on the television. Did you have any particular performers that you really gravitated to that helped along your love of the industry?
I mean, I'm going to full disclosure, I'm an 80s baby. So obviously Hulk Hogan was big when I was big. Yeah, big to me because he was little, but he was hot. That's who was on the TV on Saturdays. So that's who I can think of being my favorite wrestler. And actually the first wrestler that I had as an action figure or a wrestling figure was Hulk Hogan. And it was the rubber ones that we all had in the 80s. So
those things hurt.
Yeah.
You could do some damage with them.
Yeah, I still have it. I think my dog as a kid got a hold of it and there's chew marks on his fist, but I still have him.
Were you one of those people that even at a young age as a fan, you were just like, I want to do this one day? Or did that kind of happen later on in life?
I would say later on in life. I fan my entire life. I went through spurts where, as a teenager, you kind of have other things to do. But I think in my early 20s, when I was going to university, that's when I was like, I want to do this. This is so cool. I just loved how I felt as a fan. And I wanted to be able to do that for fans. But then, university and life and adulthood kind of takes over. And so I didn't get involved in wrestling until much later. I'm only about a year and a half into my wrestling journey, but yeah, definitely. I've always wanted to be part of it in some way, whether it was actually wrestling or behind the scenes or whatever it might be. I just loved it so much.
Okay, so we all have those kinds of phases where we kind of dip out because life gets a little busy. We come back as fans. Maybe it's because of a social situation or anything like that. So talk to me a little bit about the trigger event, that instance where you actually decided to take the leap and look into wrestling training or pursue it beyond just, hey, this is a thought in the back of my mind that one day I would love to do this.
So I'm going to credit my husband.
Okay.
At the time, he was my boyfriend. But we were sitting here one day and I had reached out to a local wrestler who was training some folks. And I saw that he had an upcoming training class. And, I was just sitting outside. It was summer or summer. And I was talking to my boyfriend, now husband. And I was like, oh yeah, Troy's putting on this wrestling class. And I'd love to do that. And he looked at me, he's like, why not? It was kind of okay. And at that point in my life, this is going to be a little bit tough to talk about. I lost both my parents within 2 years of each other. So after I lost them, life and priorities kind of shifted for me. I didn't want to go through life and have any regrets of any sort. So that, on top of my husband being like, why not? Why not do that? And I don't know, it just kind of all came together. And yeah, it's been a bit of a wild journey since. So yeah.
First of all, I'm so sorry to hear that. I fully understand, though. Sometimes you realize that life's too short to not pursue the things that we love. Can you tell me a little bit about that first experience, like walking into wrestling school or making that phone call? Did you have any mixed emotions? Did you have any doubts, even though you were getting that support? Or was it just like, you know what? I'm the kind of person, I'm going to do it and I'm going to dive into it fully and commit 100%.
Yes, like I when I commit to something, I'm seeing it through. Absolutely. I think, of course, there's a lot of like, oh, what am I getting myself into? I'm too old to be doing this. Like of course, the first day was probably the worst, just because there's like, you're anxious and you're scared, you're excited. All of those emotions, of course, are like going through your body, and you're feeling all these things. But once I was there, I think after that initial like walk through the door, it was okay. It was great. It was, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've made great friends from that experience, and I wouldn't change it. The only thing I would change is maybe doing it sooner. That's the only thing.
Did you have any transferable elements that would help you aid with that? Like, were you kind of an athletic person? Were you still kind of active? Where it's like, okay, I'm not completely starting a fresh year. At least I have this kind of routine of physical activity and getting into it, or even just, maybe verbal skills where some elements you could bring to it to make it a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, I think that like I've played sports my whole life. So, as an adult, I kind of got out of the soccer and the basketball, but I've maintained, like, I've played softball probably, I can't even tell you how long. So every summer, spring, summer, that's what I've been doing in my adult life. So, I've been doing that, keeping active, and I go to the gym regularly. So I felt like physically I would be capable of doing things, because I have, I am athletic, and felt that wouldn't be a huge issue. I mean, I think as I've come to be an adult, I've grown into myself a bit, in that I'm not as I used to be. So shy as a kid, like couldn't like talk to anybody without blushing, no matter what the situation was. But I feel like I'm still that way sometimes, but not as much. So I felt like that part of it might still be a struggle, but I don't know. It's all a work in progress, but
Yeah, I can see shyness being an obstacle when you're going into a profession where everybody's staring at you when you're in the ring and when you're going to the ring and things like that. When you had some of those difficulties, initial training and things like that, what kind of support system did you have? Did you have any peers in the class that really helped push you along? Any mentors? You did already mention you had familial support with your spouse and things like that, but what kind of helped you get through those more challenging moments where maybe you needed a little bit of something to lean on?
yeah, I mean, I think like our trainer was very, and our coach, mentor, whatever you want to call him, he was very supportive. But there were like the guys that were in my class, I was the only girl, the only female. So they're like big brothers, even though, I mean, I'm older than some of them, but they're just like brothers. And we had like a little group chat, and we'd kind of, if there was something we were feeling not so great about, we were always like encouraging each other. So, we didn't know each other as well in the very beginning, but I felt from the very beginning we had like a solid group. So
Was this the type of wrestling school where it had like a finite start and end date, or was it like kind of ongoing training until you got greenlit?
there was a start and finish date. Yeah.
Was it one of those situations where kind of right after you had finished the training, you had kind of started getting some bookings or gotten your first taste of in-ring action? Like, maybe take me through a little bit of your feelings of perhaps getting booked on your first show and how it felt to kind of see all of that hard work come together in that way.
Yeah. So my first match that I had was, the way it all came about was actually, it was just kind of all of a sudden. So it was one of our last training days, and our instructor, mentor, Troy, I'm just going to call him Troy. Troy told us, okay, so I'm just letting you guys know, like, there's going to be a match. 2 of you from this class are going to be chosen to be on it was a local show coming up that he was actually the booker for. So he kind of started our class with that information. And at the end of it, myself and my classmate Dawson James, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but so we were actually told, you guys are going to be working on that show. You're going to have a match against one another. So it kind of was like, class is over, and the next week or so, you're going to have your first match. So it was in front of, I don't want to, maybe like 50 or 60 people, and that might be generous. At least it wasn't like you're walking into like 500 people. You're kind of being eased into it. But yeah, that was our first match.
Yeah, don't hesitate to compliment Dawson. I've had him on the show. He's a lovely gentleman, and he's actually the one that put your name forward for me to talk to you. So you can absolutely compliment him as much as you want. I'm feeling like a therapist here because this seems to be the general theme of all of my questions. But how did you feel breaking the curtain for the first time and having all the people look at you and knowing that now you actually have to put everything you've been training on for the last little while and put it into practice and put on a show for these people?
So I feel like my entire focus was on my match. So when I broke the curtain, I know I looked awkward. I literally broke the curtain, went straight to the ring, didn't high five anybody, just like I was on a mission. So that to me, like I've watched it back and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. But we were all there at one point. So definitely I knew I was 100% nervous. Like I think there was maybe only ever 2 or 3 people that when we were training, if we did like a little match, it was only 2 or 3 people. This is a huge crowd. So they don't know me. Are they going to boo me? They shouldn't boo me because I'm the baby face, but they might because they don't know who the heck I am. So like all of those feelings are kind of like rushing through you. So, and then like that was the first time I had entrance music. And I was like, oh, when am I going to break the curtain? And like, just all of these things, like you're worried about looking silly or, tripping or whatever. And anyway, so it was nerve wracking, but it's one of the matches that, I mean, maybe because it was my first match, it's ingrained in my brain. So, and like, it's a memory that hopefully I'll never forget.
So a little bit of reference to things like your entrance music and when you would come out and things like that. When you were starting out, or even before you were starting out, when you were just envisioning yourself as a wrestler, did you have an idea of what kind of character you wanted to portray? Maybe not necessarily to the T, but like, hey, I would love to be this type of personality. I want people to leave the arena thinking this or that about me. Like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to be?
Well, I originally wanted to be a heel, but okay. Now, like, I'm primarily face. Nova, there she goes. Yeah. So I never really like I was just like, yeah, I want to be kind of like badass, and I want to have that like that kind of persona. But I mean, maybe I'm a little badass, but not really. I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like for me, I'm just like I'm one of few females in our area. So like, I just want to go out there and like be strong and confident and be a role model. So.
Do you ever find that to be a bit of a challenge? I know intergender wrestling is a lot more prominent in the independents, maybe because of a little bit lack of availability for female performers and things like that. Do you ever find that when you're getting booked on matches that you get almost like maybe typecast would be the right word for it, because you're always going to be going either against the same females or males that are maybe bigger and you have to play the same kind of song and dance with size over strength and speed and things like that? Or does it give you an opportunity to explore things that maybe you wouldn't if you didn't have that opportunity?
Yeah, I think being able to work intergender matches has helped me significantly, because I don't think without them I would have grown as much as I have over the last year and a half. The guys that like I've been able to work with have been like they're there to help me learn, and they're there to help me grow. So, I'm just thankful. Like, some people are like, oh, you have to wrestle guys. Like, I feel like I'm one of the guys sometimes. So like, it doesn't bother me. And I get to, I'm not always, there's some guys where it's like, size over, it's speed over strength or whatever. Like, but I don't know, sometimes I'm bigger than some of the guys. So so I don't ever feel like I'm always, like you said, typecast. I feel like I get to, do different things and kind of display different skills, and I don't know. I don't ever feel like I'm stuck.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really nice things about independent wrestling is that a lot of people who only watch product on television, they see this product that kind of puts forward a stigma against male and females fighting each other and things like that. In independent wrestling, it's just one performer against another, and it seems to be a lot more inclusive. So I think that's actually a beautiful sentiment to be able to do that and be a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had said you had a fairly short career so far in the ring, and obviously your first match with Dawson was probably a very big highlight for you. But is there anything else that stands out to you as just like a really big highlight, whether it was a match that you didn't expect to have at such an early point in your career, or even a surreal moment with a fan where you were just like, I'm a wrestler, and it just kind of sunk in with you?
Yeah. Well, there's a few. I don't I don't know how to like choose just one. Can I pick three?
As many as you want.
So obviously, like we said, my first match always going to be special to me. But I got to be in my trainer's last match. He's now retired and kind of moved on. So I got to be his tag team partner in his final match, and like I don't know, I get kind of chills thinking about that. But like that meant a lot to me that he would ask me to be part of that moment with him, because this is his last match. He could pick anybody that he's ever worked with or wanted to work with. And I was able to have that opportunity. And that's going to be one that definitely I better not forget, because I want to be able to tell people when I go to the nursing home my cool stories. So I want to be able to tell them this one.
Troy Merrick?
Yeah, Troy Merrick.
Yeah. He's a wonderful human being. I don't think that there's any reason to hesitate complimenting him. Any other those other highlights you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, so last spring, I got to wrestle Vanessa Craven, which it was kind of a like like someone who's had like multiple decades in the ring. Like her career is like 20 plus years. Like for me to be able to get in the ring with her, one, it was scary because I'm 5'1" and she is a tall woman. But like, I mean, I don't want to be like telling stories or telling secrets, but like she was so great to work with, like very positive, and really wanted to put a good match together and wanted me to maybe try some things that I haven't been able to try before. And just really good feedback. So like for me to have that opportunity, not even being in like wrestling for an entire year yet at that point, that was huge for me. So, she's had opportunities with WWE and other big companies. So like, I don't know, that one to me is just like, that one's important.
Sometimes it's not even the match. It's just being able to sit in the locker room and absorb information from people who have been doing this for so long and have been, I mean, Vanessa Craven's been everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it is absolutely wonderful. And you said you had a third one as well?
Yes. So this one is actually a fan interaction. So I was at a wrestling show, and this little girl came up with her dad. And she has like her own little like wrestling name. And she came up and she wanted one of my shirts and an 8x10. So like they were telling me like, oh yeah, like we wrestle at home, and she has her own like wrestling name. And, I don't know. It was just like, oh, like I'm a role model. Like that was the moment when I was like, oh, I'm a role model. Like these little girls and boys look up to me. And like, that's when I was like, okay, like this is what this is. Anyway, I wrote this like sappy, I think it was a Facebook post about how much that moment meant to me, because it it took me back to when I was that little girl going to wrestling shows with my dad. So like it was like that moment that I have been waiting for, being able to give the fans something that I would have gotten from wrestling as a fan. So like it was kind of like the roles had reversed. So I had that moment.
That's beautiful because I mean, more people need to realize when they're looking at it from the outside in that it's not just about the match in the ring sometimes. It's about the impact you have on people and the way that you touch them and you help them make memories, right? So I would be remiss if I didn't ask the very cliche in wrestling interview question. Who is the dream opponent that you would absolutely love to square up with?
Well, this is okay. It's a dream opponent. So, but Jordan Grace, because she's like my height. She's not, I mean, I'm nowhere near as fit or muscular or strong as her, but like that would be my dream match. I love because I am not your stereotypical female. I don't think I'm not skinny. I'm not tall. I'm short. I'm muscular. Like I am not. And I feel like she's also that a woman. I mean, so I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. It would just be a really cool match. And I think we could probably, well, she would probably put on a great show and make me look good.
Well, the beautiful thing about wrestling is that you can never say never. Things happen all the time that you would never expect. That being said, though, where would you like to see your career go next? Maybe not necessarily long term, but is there any companies, any cities you'd like to travel to? Like, what's kind of next on the bucket list for you?
So I've had the opportunity to go to Montreal and work. Lufisto had the women's wrestling syndicate. She had started I guess it was this time last year, actually. So I had that opportunity, which was amazing. But I'd really like to maybe try to go to Ontario. There's a lot of great promotions there. I'm not going to just pick one. Like I honestly, like there's just so many opportunities there. And I mean, maybe not right now, but I was hoping to maybe go to the States to wrestle, down near Maine, because they have a few wrestlers from the Maritimes go down there once in a while. So, there's opportunities there, of course. I mean, I would never really say no to anything. I'm really open to going anywhere I can, honestly. I don't want to be held back. If I have the opportunity to do something and if it works, logistically, those opportunities I definitely take.
Okay, so just stepping out of the ring for a minute, you have a little bit of free time, you need to recharge the batteries. What kind of things do you like to do to pass the time?
Oh, well, as I said, I go to the gym. That's my saving grace sometimes with my head. Like just sometimes you need a break, you need to clear a head, go there. I have a dog, so we like to go outside and go for walks and hikes. So I like to stay active. Downtime to me is not, I don't like being just laying on the couch is not my thing. I should do it more. It's good for you to just lay on the sofa and binge watch a show. And I do that from time to time, but I really like just, I don't know, getting out and trying new things, going out for some good food.
Well, that brings me to another question. I'm Ontario based. I've been here my entire life. And when I do get out to the East Coast, I love to try the cuisine out there. Recommend to myself or someone else who is heading out to the East Coast for the first time one food spot that you absolutely have to give a shout out to.
Oh, dear. Well,
It's difficult to pick one, right?
oh, yeah. And I'm in a small town. So if I'm telling you what to get here, I mean, what do we even have here that's amazing? We have a local pub that's really, really good. It's called the River Pub. I mean, I'm in a small town. I'm in Bridgewater. So there's not fancy chain restaurants here. We have a Boston pizza. That's about it. But yeah, the River Pub. That's if you're in Bridgewater on the South Shore, that's the place to go.
Yeah, you don't want chains. Chains are everywhere. You want those very, well-kept secret hole in the wall type places that just have that charm you can't put your finger on, right? So the last question that I like to ask everybody is just if you had an opportunity to go back and talk to a younger version of yourself, whether it was before or right when you were getting into wrestling training, what piece of advice would you give yourself that could also translate to somebody else who's perhaps on the fence about getting into the profession?
I think I would go back to the 20 something version of myself. And the minute that I said I thought about wrestling training, that's when I should have done it. Mid 20s, like early to mid 20s. I should have taken that student loan and just went and trained. But no,
Well,
seriously.
well, let's not encourage people to spend their student loans on wrestling training.
On wrestling training. But if you, I don't know, like if it's something that you really want to do, like, I don't want to sound cliche, but like chase the dream. Like don't go through life having regrets. That's my biggest thing. Like you don't want to be like, oh darn, I really wish I would have trained to be a wrestler or whatever it is, and whether it's wrestling or a job or moving somewhere. Like I feel like if you have a dream or you have something that you're like, yeah, I really want to do this, just do it. Like find a way to do it. Maybe you can't do it right then, but work towards it, and like don't wait 15 years to do it like I did.
That's amazing. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. Before we sign out, can you just let people know once again who you are and where they can find you online if they want to keep up to date with what you got going up?
Yeah. So thank you. But yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Ronnie Payne 2023, and on Facebook, just Ronnie Payne.
Wonderful. Thank you once again so much for doing this.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.